Today, I'm sitting down with my friend, mentor, and client, Greg Giuliano. He's a leadership powerhouse. He's an executive coach and the author of 4 game-changing books: The Hero's Journey, Ultra Leadership, The Next Normal, and his most recent, Coaching for a Change. So Greg's been in the rooms where the stakes are sky high, guiding CEOs, transforming dynamic teams, and helping leaders evolve without losing their soul. This conversation is your compass if you're trying to lead in a world that won't stop shifting. Side quest: Greg was someone who stood in front of me in my refugee mobile when I was selling t-shirts at one point, and he purchased a couple of my t-shirts actually. Years later, I saw him in a writing cohort that I was helping with, and he was wearing the very t-shirt I sold him. So we sparked that conversation back up, and it was just amazing. A few months later, I got to actually go back up to Portland, and I invited Greg out to sort of pick his brain. And I was really interested in the coaching world. I was trying to start my own thing in consulting. And guess what? He immediately encouraged me, immediately pushed me and supported me. Thought it was a great idea. Then I was building Rising Authors after I had lost my job. And, I reached out to him and I was just like, hey, man, I see what you're doing. I love it. Of course, I'm doing this thing now, the coaching / helping people build their brand. And guess what? Greg immediately signed up, was happy to support, and he pulled me into his world, kind of put me under his arm and started guiding me, to be honest with you, started coaching me. Whether it was subconsciously or whether it was direct, we started working together in that way. So I owe a lot to my friend Greg here. And so, yeah, man, I'm super excited to have you on the show. And I can't wait to get into this because not only you are a leader, of course, all those good things, but you really embody being just a remarkable human being. So just thankful that our paths crossed in that way.
Me too. Good to be here. Good to be with you, doing what you love to do. So yeah, I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Here we are, man. Isn't this crazy? Isn't that crazy how we all just sort of the pattern of life and how it weaves things together beautifully. The tapestry is just amazing. So I trust that now more than ever because of opportunities like this that I get to have with authors. So I want to start sort of in an honest way. What was the moment you realized your own leadership needed to change?
We're getting in the Wayback Machine now, because this is a long time ago. I had just taken over. So I started working I was a therapist, then became an executive coach, and a coach friend asked me to do some consulting work to participate in a leadership program that they were doing in a giant global organization. So I said, yeah. And I did that for a while, and I really enjoyed that, to the point that I had an opportunity to then take a leadership role in the consulting firm that I had initially, had brought me on as a contractor. And I ended up being the CEO of that company. And it was small. It was a small boutique firm as part of a global organization. And I remember one of the first events that happened under my leadership went great, and the client loved us. And I had a team of coaches that were helping with the work. And there was this one woman that I really, really wanted to be a part of the work that we were doing. She's an amazing coach, fantastic person, walked the walk, right? Really just a genuine, authentic, terrific professional. And I wanted her to join us. And she said, yeah, no. And I said, why not? She said, because you still have some growth to do as a leader. And there are things that you are doing that tell me that you're not focused on the right stuff. I mean, it was like, and this was at a dinner. At the end of our, we were traveling for this work with this client, and we finished the work. It was a very successful event, and we're at dinner celebrating, and she says, yeah, no, because you're not focusing on the right stuff. There's stuff that while you're good at it and it's easy for you, you need to delegate that. And one of the things was that I didn't, at that point, I had no assistant. I was doing everything myself, because this, when you're just starting a company, and you're small, when you're in a leadership role, you got to do it all. And she said, you are at the point now where you are still doing it all, and it's not sustainable. It's not going to work. So if you want me to be involved in the company, I need to see that you're serious about the growth that you talk about and the trajectory that you talk about, and having the kind of impact that you talk about. And so we finished dinner, and I went home back to my room and cried. No, I didn't cry, but I was like, okay, I got to take this seriously. And I immediately, so when I take if somebody gives you that gift of feedback and tells and shows you that you think you are way up here and you're really down here, right? Then you've got to pay attention to that gap, and you need to own that and let that in. And like, she was right. And so when I got home immediately, within 2 days of getting home from that engagement, started the search, and luckily found a person who became my first assistant, and began looking at, okay, in order for us to grow, and scale, what more do I need to let go of? And so I began working with my coach about that. I'm serious about this. I want this to happen. So found an assistant. What else? And so through the coaching conversation, just kept realizing, where's the best use of me? Where should I be focusing my time and energy? If I want this to be a sustainable and growing organization. So that, letting that feedback in was a transformative experience. And this was 2004, right? Got that. So I, and it was a pivotal moment, that feedback, from that wonderful woman, was a catalyst for making it real.
Huge. The first thing I did when I started growing Rising Authors, I went and got Anna, my assistant. Right. I mean, it was just like listening to you, sharing these stories. This is what I'm saying. Like, you embody this work, but you really embody in not just getting the person, not only training them up, of course, but you also trust. Like, trust is a big thing here with the team. Like, you really give that person the value that they bring, and you allow them to bring in that energy, bring in their work, bring in, and let them own it. And you taught me so much around that that was one of the last things I did in my previous businesses, was just like learning to let go. And it was the first thing I implemented when I started building Rising Authors. So like, not only, like, I asked you that question because I know that story a little bit, but I love that story because it's so real. Taking feedback, filling that gap, because we may think we're up here, but we're actually a little bit, we're not embodying the thing. And that's
absolutely
so important.
And when you're an entrepreneur, in early days, you think, I've got to, where can I save? And I'm going to try to do it all myself. And we need to let that go, because we need to make smart investments in building a foundation for growth. And as long as you're trying to do it all yourself, you're not building the foundation. You're building a hamster wheel that is really small, and you're the only one who fits on it. And then you just keep cranking it. And then you wonder, oh, I can't get any traction. I can't grow. It's like, well, yeah, you've designed it that way. And so making those hard choices about where you're going to invest, versus it being an expense, I see having that support is an investment. It's not an expense. It's an investment, because I can't grow if I'm not confident that there's a team that's taking care of stuff, and they're better at it than I am. And there are things that, I don't know. So you tell me, what should we be doing here? And so you have to have that trust for people, and it's like, oh, this is so important to me. I'm trying to build this company and it's so precious. And so trust is hard when you've got that emotional stake in it. It's like, oh, no, you need to let someone be a part of the work with you and trust that they know what they're doing, and they actually know more than you do about that. And so hand it over, get out of the way, and give them what they need in order to succeed. And that's what I've been trying to do for, quarter of a century now, is find the people who know more than I do and say, I would love for you to do this. Tell me what you need, and I'll make sure you have it. And it's made all the difference.
The way of a leader. So you've coached countless executives through, I'm sure, all kinds of different crises. What's one story that shook you, one that made you rethink your own frameworks?
There was a leader, this is again a number of years ago, who was absolutely convinced that his way was working. And so I was, I was, twisting myself into, coaching knots of how to break through with him, about that his mindset, his beliefs about leadership and the team and teams, were holding him back. And it was shocking, because it was like a coaching experience. We worked together for a while. So it's like he'd be yelling at me that I was just wrong. And I don't know, Greg, you just don't know. Like, okay, I don't, maybe, and I'm like, and I'd be talking to my coach saying, I don't know, am I like completely wrong here? I think, I don't know.
Something's missing.
It was tough. And it was one of those agree to disagree things. And he's a great guy, and we had a good time. And he says he got value out of our coaching. But his intransigence, or his firm belief that his way was working, just really shook me. It's like it became a realization that I think he's reached the limit of coachability, because he's just not. He's got his way of thinking about this, and I am not going to influence him to even consider a different way. So it had me kind of like thinking, okay, so am I right, in my approach, in my theoretical foundation, and what's still missing in terms of knowledge and skill for me as a coach whose purpose is to help the client with their agenda, whether it's development or performance or whatever. What did I still need to learn? He's maybe had hit a wall. I was thinking maybe he's hit a wall. He's just not coachable. But the other thing was, well, maybe I've hit a wall. Maybe I'm stuck. Maybe I still need to grow as a coach, and as somebody who wants to engage people on conversations about leadership and people and team performance. There was it was a recognition for me. It's like it's not that the person isn't coachable. It's that I need to grow. Because the way that I'm trying isn't working. And so I can't, it's like if you're trying to hammer a nail and you can't get the nail to go, you can't, it's not the nail's fault and it's not the hammer's fault, right? It's user error. So I was, what could I do
Right.
to, to, to grow myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was
Yeah.
an interesting moment.
Oh, I bet. And I think those are the moments for me personally, right? When we're really up against a difficult situation or a person or challenging thing that, in a way, it wants to bring the best out of you. It wants to bring the next level out of you. But we may not even see it that way in the beginning, right? Like we all go up against challenging people, challenging situations, challenging, work culture, whatever it may be. Um, and I think if we dwell too much on the challenge itself and not pull back far enough to see what what is the missing link here, like you said, you kind of started reflecting, like, am I not qualified? Am I not stepping my game up? Is it really that person? You started asking, I think, the right questions to try to figure out what needs to be done. And if it is you need to up your game, then there's ways to up your game. If it's that person and there's just no budging, maybe it's just time to part ways and go on and help the next person. And whatever it may be, there is a solution there. But I think those challenging times actually bring out another layer of us.
Well,
I don't know if
yeah,
you agree
and
with that.
so it depends on our mindset, right? Like Carol
Yeah.
Dweck's book, mindset from a few years ago. It's how we respond in the face of challenges or obstacles or criticism. Um, you know, we need to pay attention to that. So if I'm facing a challenge, do I try to avoid it or do I embrace it? If the person or the team or the system that I'm, if I'm sensing there's an obstacle, am I just going to give up or am I going to persist? And am I going to, allow in, feedback, or am I going to try to grow from feedback? So, being able to shift from, to not have a fixed mindset, but have a growth mindset. It's like, one of the things that, I try to remind myself about all the time in my self-talk, and something I say to my clients all the time is that, how do we begin to see everything that happens as learning?
Mm.
So that just happened. So what about that? Okay, well, what do I need to learn from that? What do I want to learn from that? Because I can't change what happened.
Yeah, it's
So
not
how do I
fixed.
respond to it? I can respond to it as, that was a terrible thing, or I can respond to it as a lesson. What's
Yeah.
the lesson? And I think that, when is for an entrepreneur, that you get lessons all the time, and
Every day.
every day you get another lesson.
Every
Oh,
day.
that worked. Oh, that worked. Great. What's the lesson there? That didn't work. Okay, what's the
Yeah.
lesson there?
Yeah. Totally. I love your mindset there, and I think it's so powerful. It's helped me with those reminders. Like working with you, it's really helped me not only regain my confidence from building a previous business, but also understand that I'm in a totally different ball game, right? And so I needed to level up and skill up in different ways and show up for my authors and experts, like in ways that honestly sometimes are emotional, right? And I had to kind of learn to, yeah, like ask the right questions and step back and help them. Like in a way, I think you helped me with this a lot, was just like, look, you can't force anyone to drink the water, no matter how much you lead them to it. But what's the one thing that'll make them even more thirsty so that they actually do drink it, right? Like in a weird sort of dynamic. And so that is a beautiful thing in coaching, and how I apply it in my work is, finding where the challenge is for that person and really just letting them see it, and just see it over and over and saying, like, do you see this? Do you see this? And when they see it, then they can and admit to it. Now the change can start to happen. So that's what I love about your new book. It's coaching for a change, but it's not just like the change that you're trying to sort of apply onto someone. It's the change that can come from within someone if we can help them see that thing too. I think
it's
it's
being
so powerful.
open. I mean, you're the embodiment of a growth mindset and
I got no
resilience
choice.
and persistence. Right? Yeah, you got no choice. You do, but we actually, you do have a choice,
Yeah, totally.
and you decide no, you keep going because, and I think this is a wonderful thing that you bring to your clients is that you show them where there will be challenges and where there will be work, but you keep it in perspective because as you know, as hard as it is, it's not, leaving your home country, spending years in a refugee camp, and coming and learning English,
Right.
learning
Right.
English in a new country. It's not that hard, right? So
Right.
you bring perspective to people.
Yeah.
It's like they can't complain a lot when they're talking with you, because their
Yeah.
story just their tale of woe just doesn't compare. So, and
Yeah.
it's like a friend of mine who is a cancer survivor, and we would talk about doing work, and she would say, "Yeah, Greg, it's hard, but it's not cancer hard." And so you bring perspective to everybody, and you keep it real, and you say, if you want to grow, we need to talk honestly about these things.
Yeah.
That you're going to have to make some shifts in how you think about your work and what you want to achieve and what you're willing to do in
Yeah.
terms of putting in the hours,
Yeah.
and the time and the energy and the resources to make
Of
it
course.
happen. So
Yeah.
you help people knock down those barriers just by thinking about them differently.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, my friend. I've definitely learned a lot from you and other people, of course, and the many books that you've recommended. And I mean, there's so many amazing people that I feel like have helped me with this journey. But yeah, like I'm grateful that I've gone through a lot of different kinds of things and scenarios and sort of chose the path of entrepreneurship. And it's like, at the end of the day, once I realized I choose my hard, I choose my difficulty, and that's something that I'm willing to embrace. And it's like that I feel like is a transferable energy. It's like, oh, that actually is motivating. That's inspiring. So it's like, we'll go through the next wall together. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? We'll get there when we get there. And a lot of those challenges just kind of fall away. I feel like for a lot of people, it's just mental blockage that we've all had. I've had, everyone has. So let's flip it a little bit. What's a moment you felt like you failed as a coach? What did that teach you about the people you serve?
Uh, uh, my failures as a coach have always happened when my ego got in the way, and I thought I knew more or better than the person I was coaching. It's like, here's what you need to do, and that's not my job as a coach. And thankfully, I haven't done that in a long time. I don't think so. Um, uh,
Except when it comes for me. Just
well, yeah, but
I'm
so
just
there's
kidding.
mentoring, there's teaching, there's coaching. When I'm coaching people, it's their agenda. It can't be my agenda. So the failure is when I let my agenda bleed in, and that influences, how I show up as a
Mhm.
coach. And I try to, one of the books that I really enjoy is Marshall Goldsmith's "What Got You Here Won't Get You There." And he has these 21 habits in the book that we're all guilty of to some degree. And there's one or two that that is ours. It's the thing that holds us back. And one of them is adding too much value, that you every time, right, that you're with a client or something, you go over the top and trying to have the answer. And I remember, in early days when I would be facilitating work with a team or working with a leader, for me, having the right answer and unlocking something for them, I got so much out of that. It was like trying to add that value, and then a client who I love, who's become a great friend. He's been a coaching client for 6 or 7 years now. When I asked him for feedback once, I said, "What's something that I do that it kind of gets in the way?" He said, "When you try to slide in an answer, when we're having a team conversation, it's just it it doesn't work." And so it's something I knew, and I wished I did, and I was like, "Oh shoot, I do that. I wish I didn't do that." And he goes, "Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, you don't need to do that. You're You don't need to do that. There's nothing to prove. And that was one of those moments like, what's it like to show up? This was, and I had a great conversation with my coach about this. It's like, how freeing is it to be able to show up with nothing to prove?
So powerful. That is something I definitely look forward to continue working on. Right.
Me too, man.
I mean, right.
I have nothing to prove here.
Yeah.
Right. What do you want to achieve? I'm going to find that out, what you want to achieve. And then I'm going to ask you if I can give you feedback from, here's my perspective on where things are right now. And then you do with it what you want. Right. And I have nothing to prove. In that moment, I can be a majority of one, and I don't have to say everything I think out loud.
Yeah. So powerful. This is powerful because I feel like as an entrepreneur, as a coach or mentor or whatever, I feel like I don't know. Of course, I don't know all the answers, and every answer actually shapeshifts to different people that you work with because they're not the same. And so, there's a through line, there's a thread that's similar. So it may feel like it's the right answer. And this is something I've caught myself doing. Well, it may feel like the same answer because it's a similar situation, but this person is going through something completely different and emotional and whatever. So I kind of have to lead them there, maybe on the next call or the one after. And you kind of have to like let it come to fruition. And that is something in this last year, actually, I have really paid attention to. And that comes from one of the best things that you've talked about, not only on your YouTube show and all that good stuff, but also in your book, is the asking for feedback, the being really attentive to the feedback. We kind of alluded to this earlier, but you're such a good reminder for me to ask for feedback in a way, especially if I want to give feedback, to ask first, to ask about how I can improve, how I'm not seeing around the corner. That is such a powerful tool. Can you elaborate on that a little bit about how you utilize that with people that you coach and the teams that you help support?
Yeah, the way that we grow is that we show up, we behave in a certain way, and the environment tells us whether that works or not, right? Because they're either, we engage people or we don't based on how we show up and how we behave. And so I want to explore that with people. So, it's like, so I ask them to ask other people, tell me something I do that has a really positive impact. Be specific. I'd really love to know that. And then tell me something I do that if you know what I'm trying to achieve and what I'm hoping people say about me when I'm not around, what's something that I do that actually detracts from the positive story that I want people telling about me? That kind of feedback that's like, somebody cares enough about you to tell you that you have spinach in you, right? So what's the spinach in my teeth? And so I encourage the leaders that I coach to ask people that they trust, what's the endorsement and what's the illumination? And then to ask, what's something that I could do? If I want to be seen as more strategic, or I want to be seen as a servant leader, or I want to be, be a great coach. What's one thing I could do that I could change today that would help me with that? And invite that expert, point of view from that person that you trust. And to create that feedback loop. It's like a thermostat for how I'm showing up as a leader. That when I'm off, when the temp is down, the heat clicks on, and when it's too hot, the air conditioning clicks on. And so what's the feedback loop that you have for how you are showing up and performing in order to achieve whatever your goals are? You need somebody around to say, hey, this is working. Hey, this part isn't working. So what's the shift that you want to make. And what are you going to do to make that shift? And maybe they don't want to make a shift. Maybe they're going to take in the feedback and go, yeah, no, but I'm not going to change. It's like, okay, then you're not going to change. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's also like, in a way, chipping away at the ego. And
Yeah.
I think feedback then becomes part of not only just something that you, just part of who you are. And then you start to look for it in other things, in your work, in your relationship, in your fatherhood, in your whatever, you start to look for it and improve upon it, not because you have to, but because you know that that's part of growth. It's part of who you are. It's natural.
Yeah. But so when you're not open, right? When you have that fixed mindset and you're not open to that kind of feedback, and you're not letting the environment teach you, um, then what happens is you then will build a narrative that reinforces that all of the barriers to your success that you're encountering are external.
Oof.
It's not you. It's not me. It's the world is against me. It's this process sucks. It's that team member is not good. So you have all these. If only you were different, or that thing was different, or that client was smarter, right, then my life would be better. And so the narrative that begins to drive our behavior is what I call, it's a victim narrative, that I'm a victim, and because it's all external, right? If only all this stuff was different, my life would be awesome, my business would be thriving. It's just these stupid clients, customers, they don't get it, right? It's like, well, no, you need a mirror. If you're going to run a business, you're going to be a leader, you need a mirror, because you cannot be a leader. You can't be I think an entrepreneur if you're a victim. The two, they don't work. It doesn't work. And so you got to get out of you got to short circuit that victim story and go, some of the barriers that I'm encountering, I've created myself, or inside me, because of how I think about work, how I think about my role, how I think about my customers, my clients, all of the different aspects. It's how do I change my mindset? And if I'm not willing to do that, then I'm just going to fall into the trap of, I'm just going to tell myself this victim story over and over and over again to make myself feel better, that it's not me, it's you. And it's like, no, actually it's you.
Yeah. So powerful. And it's so true. That blockage starts to happen, and you see it in people, you see it in other people, and it's just like, it's the constant frustration with the world. And it's like, there needs to be some change.
Yeah.
We can't change the world right now with the tools that we have, but we need to change something else. And that just so happens to be you. So it's just like, it's recharging the river, right?
I had a coach who said, Greg, how do you think you're self-sabotaging? How are you getting in your own way? And if you're not willing to ask yourself those questions and look for the answers, then you're stuck. You're fixed.
Yeah, so powerful. All right, I want to talk about your books a little bit. So obviously you started with your first one, which was sort of a gateway into authorship, but also to provide some value, some additional value for an organization that you were working with, The Hero's Journey, which was still around leadership. And I love that. But then you kind of got your feet wet with the writing, and then you decided to take it a little bit more serious. How has writing helped you distill the coaching methodologies that you've sort of started to put together? And how has it helped you build your authority?
So it started out as a way to be very declarative about, in a field that it has become commoditized. Anybody can, print up cards and create a website and call themselves a coach. So how do you differentiate? And so I needed to, what's my point of view on leadership? What does it truly mean? What are the foundational skills? What's the mindset? And in order to say to the world, this is what I think about it. So I wanted to make it easier for people. It's like, here's what I think about leadership. It's in this book, Ultra Leadership. And it compares, business as usual and ordinary leadership versus ultra leadership, breaking out of business as usual in order to really engage, empower, and activate people. And so I wanted to get my point of view out there and say, this is what I do. If it resonates, we want to work together. If it doesn't resonate, you go somewhere else. There's lots of good people out there. So Ultra Leadership was, this is what I think about leadership and about organizations. And again, nothing to prove. You can either agree with me or disagree with me. I'm okay either way. The world will keep spinning. But this is what I think about. This is what I think we need in our organizations. That usual and ordinary has gotten us where we are, and if we're going to transform the workplace, we need a different way, a different approach to leadership. And so that's where Ultra Leadership came from. And it started out as wanting to plant my flag, but it's a creative it's also a creative outlet. My creative process is words, and so I like writing, and I like the process. And so I finished Ultra Leadership, and of course everybody then says, well, what's next? And so the next normal, during and right after the pandemic, the workplace was changing, right? It was never going to go back to the way it was. So I see leadership has the responsibility not just to find the next normal, but to create the next normal. What's the next normal? Because there is no going back to normal. There's now what's the next normal, and the next and the next. That we're in this constant world now of order, disorder, and reorder. That's the process. There's no things are never going back to normal. There will just be a next normal. And so how does leadership shape that and create the conditions that enable everybody in the organization to lead and navigate through continuous change? And so that's where we began to lay out our Ultra Leadership team management system of how do you keep people aligned? How do you keep continually building bench strength? How do you coordinate action inside your organizations? And so we laid out, this is a system for showing up as an ultra leader, of creating the conditions that engage people, empower them to shape their work, and activate them to achieve what goals they have on behalf of the team. And then the most recent book, Coaching for a Change, just came out in December of 24. That's really the book is kind of like there was something missing in Ultra Leadership. How do I lay out the system more clearly? And that's in Next Normal. And then in Next Normal, what was missing for me there was we need to really dig into that. Leaders need to make the shift from old school managing in a traditional command and control organization to engaging a new and changing workforce that doesn't want to be told what to do. They want to be coached. They want an opportunity to demonstrate their mastery. They want a certain degree of autonomy in their role, and they want to know that their work is connected to a higher purpose inside the organization. And so Coaching for a Change was really going into, here's how you make that shift from being a manager to being a coach to your people. So it's about coaching for a change. How do you help people change? How do you help teams change by coaching them, but also telling leaders it's time to start coaching for a change. Enough with the telling people what to do. Try coaching for a change. And so
Perfect.
those are that's kind of that's is what we do. You know, it shows up
Yeah.
in how we coach people, shows up in our work with teams, and it shows up in our leadership development experiences in particular, in general, and in particular, our Be a Great Coach program.
Yeah. So powerful, man. Now, I know writing a book, of course, helps you with that credibility, authority, something you can leverage, share with people, especially when you do talks, when you kind of want to introduce your work to someone to see if we're a right fit. There's so many different dynamics and different ways to use a book. But on top of that, since you and I started working, we really wanted to build a brand, like sort of brand awareness. And I really wanted to add a layer of media like video. How would you say, like, since we started doing more video, getting that stuff out there, how do you feel that the dynamic between the written word and of course video format has that been helpful, resourceful for your organization to help others in that way, attract people to you? Or has it been sort of a flat line? What's that been like? And be honest here, I'm just curious for my understanding of how I help authors build their brand around media specifically. What's
I
that
think
been
it's
like
been,
for you?
I think, yeah, it's been incredibly helpful, and I think very impactful, because so the written word is kind of there. It is on the page, or on your screen. Um, the video brings it alive, and it just makes it more real. And there are people that, so we all learn differently. And so some people, can read the book and they'll be fine. But some people, how do they consume information and challenge themselves? How do they learn? And some of us learn by, watching or listening. And so it's another avenue, another channel for sharing a message. And it's an important one because it's a way that some people, this is how they consume information. And so, they're not going to read the book, but they're going to watch the videos, where the same concepts and ideas are being presented. So I think it's opened up a new way to engage folks. It's opened up a new opportunity for folks to engage with us. So creating a community where people respond, we enter into a dialogue. And at the end of the day, when you talk about in our work, it's not about marketing a book or a product. It's about creating awareness and growing a community, when you do want to do some specific marketing, that you've built an audience. You've got a built-in audience through the books and through the videos that we have on the YouTube channel. And so I think it can't be overstated how it's been helpful to us, because we can use those videos, in so many different places. We do them for educational purposes, on YouTube, but now we incorporate those into our engagements with our clients. It's like before they go to one of our webinars online, that the intro is watch this video with Greg to give you a sense of what you're going to be experiencing in the webinar. So it's been incredibly helpful.
I love that. All right. So to wrap it up here, there are a lot of people in your shoes, experts that are either finishing up their book, finished the book, not really sure how to use it yet, maybe, or they are using it, but maybe not to full potential. What's one piece of advice for really what I call, again, the rising authorpreneur out there, from your expertise and experience? What's one piece of advice that could really help them see it a little bit differently?
Yeah, so I think they need to see the book and then the work that you can do. So building that platform is a means to an end. It's not the end in itself. And so, shifting your expectation for what are you using the book for? What are you, doing, creating videos for? So having that platform is, it's a tool, and so the expectation shift is that I had to go through was, what's the purpose of the book? And what's my job? So something that so I'll tell I come up in the world in the world of coaching and consulting, and so many coaches will tell you that they don't want to do this. They don't want to. The marketing is a dirty word for them, because they just want to do the work. It's like, well, how's the world going to know about you? So if you just want to do the work, then you're going to work for someone else. So you have to see that that marketing and public relations and building brand awareness, that's part of your job. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're becoming an author, you're doing it for a reason. It's not, the book isn't the end. The book is a means to an end. None of us are retiring off of royalties from book sales. Unless you're Stephen King, I don't know of anybody left in the world who's just living off of royalties from book sales. That the book is a means, and the whole platform. That's one piece of a platform that you're building to generate brand awareness, to invite conversations, and to help you open doors to have conversations about the products and services that you want to bring to create value with that client or with that potential customer. So you have to see it for what it is and set the expectations of what you're going to use it for, and that it's going to take an investment of your time, energy, and resources to do it. And it's something that you unless you're going to work for someone else, it's something that you have to see as a critically important part of your day-to-day. That every day you're thinking about, where are we in conversation with our potential customers?
Yeah,
You can't just hang up a sign. Where are your customers, and how are you engaging them? And whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's YouTube, whether it's a book, where are they, and how are you getting in front of them and inviting them into conversation?
beautiful. Well said, my friend. Well, I appreciate you not only being on the show, but honestly, your guidance, your mentorship, your coaching to me has honestly been priceless. I feel like I get the benefit times 10 when I get to hang out with you, learn from you, read your books. And, I'm just beyond grateful for your support, encouragement, and really believing in what I'm doing and what I've been building. So thank you for that.
It's
And
fantastic.
yeah, man, seriously, thank you for that. And so on that note, everyone, if you didn't catch a gem from this episode, I can't figure out what else to tell you. But Greg just enlightened me, of course, as always, and I hope he enlightened you today too. Greg, thank you for being on the show, my friend.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.